And welcome back to another edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by a triumphantly returning Justin Lowery. Justin, how are you doing on this fine eve?
Lovely.
It is a new year, 2019, and we're going to get into the maybe same problems that WWE has had over the past several months. New year, really not a new product in that regard, but something that is new, Justin, something that you're very excited about. I know we've talked about this a few times over the past weeks. Last week, I mentioned that All Elite Wrestling became official. They made the announcement on January 1st, right after midnight, actually. This past week, I guess another step, as they had a press conference, which probably not coincidentally was held the same night that Smackdown had a show in Jacksonville. They decided to do that. That's probably going to be, it seems like their home base. Based on the fact that the Jacksonville owners are the ones who are really funding this. Some announcements came forth about some new people that will be part of the promotion, some a little surprising, some not so much. Your overall reaction on the news that we heard not only this past Tuesday, but the prior week as well?
Positive, I guess, would be the key word. I'm excited. There's still a lot to be determined. We got a little bit of information from them, but not a whole lot. It seems like we have to wait to May to even see the first show from them, which is understandable. I'm sure there's a lot of work to go into starting a new promotion and such. You need to get the roster and venues and this and that. So far, I think they have about 10 wrestlers or so under contract. I think they're off to a good start, positive vibes. I think one of the reasons everyone should be excited is they're actually being backed by money. And if anything we've learned over the course of wrestling, if you're not backed by a lot of money, you're not going to make it too far.
You and I talked the other night when we were together, and I said, how is this going to be different than what Ring of Honor really is doing? Because Ring of Honor, I think, is the same type of feel where it's about the in-ring performers. It's not about, ridiculous storylines and things of that nature. And obviously, the vast majority of these guys with All Elite made their name in Ring of Honor, at least in North America. Your big contention was because it has money and it'll probably be on a much bigger network. Is that really the difference between this and other promotions that have, had a lot of success maybe in terms of the product, but not overall in terms of making money?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the biggest promotion in America that's, besides WWE was WCW, and they were backed by a billionaire. Well, this promotion is also going to be backed by a billionaire. ECW was probably the most popular wrestling promotion that wasn't backed by a whole ton of money. And usually there's the short, windows there. I mean, TNA, Impact Wrestling now is still going on, but at a very, very, very small scale. Ring of Honor has been around for quite some time, and they are what they are. It's great independent wrestling, but they can only go so far because there's only so much money. You got to put out and be willing to lose some early on to, I think, get long-term gains. And as someone who's a billionaire, they are probably willing to do that. I look today, the Khans who are, running, AEW, they are worth more than the McMahons. They have more money than Vince McMahon. So
right. That being said, I'm sure they have a lot tied into other, obviously the Jaguars and other things.
They're worth $6.4 billion. So, I don't think they got into this business to fail. And apparently they are wrestling fans. But it looks like they're letting wrestling people run it, which is smart because as we saw from WCW, when wrestling people don't run a promotion, things tend to get awry.
What if they start losing money over the first 6 months, a year? Then do they say, well, we need to start making some decisions? That's all. I guess we can only speculate at this point.
Whenever you start a new business, I think a lot of people budget for that, expect like, hey, we might lose money a little bit off the bat, until, the sponsors coming in. Hopefully they get some good sponsorships off the bat, but people might wait to see ratings. What type of TV deal do they get? Do you take a short-term TV deal at less money to maybe gain more in the long run? There's a lot of question marks, and that's their decisions to make.
Yeah, some of the people that have signed on, Joey Janela, who was part of the All In event, Adrian Neville, Pac, whatever you want to call him, and he's a great in-ring performer. There's no doubt that his contributions are going to be significant in the ring. That being said, even though I really like the character that he portrayed, sort of a tormented character on 205 Live, his personality isn't necessarily elite, to kind of make a pun. But I think the one name who's going to appeal to casual fans as opposed to just the hardcore fans is Chris Jericho. Because Ring of Honor appeals to those, hardcore fans, the ones that love the in-ring work, but it never gets that mainstream appeal because it doesn't appeal to all the fans. I feel like this promotion could be similar, but a guy like Chris Jericho would go a long way towards maybe changing that.
You need, and it's kind of fun. Maybe I'll contradict myself a little bit here because I always complain about WWE using old guys. And we'll get into that a little later about old guys in WWE. But to start a promotion, you need to have some names with value because you want people to tune in and be like, oh, yeah, I know who that is. WCW, when they got Hogan and Hall, Nash, Macho Man, it gave them notoriety. People like, oh, what's going on over here? Jericho helps with that. There's been rumors of Bill Goldberg. I'm not really a fan of that.
That seems sort of opposite of what this promotion would be about, right?
I don't know what that could be about, but I understand that they need to get a couple names. I think Cody Rhodes has more mainstream appeal than you might think. He does act in the show Arrow, who I actually watch, and he's been in many of episodes. He is the son of Dusty Rhodes. I think most casual fans know who Dusty Rhodes is too.
Right, but he still can't even, or at least isn't using that last name.
Well, which, don't get me started that WWE won't let him use Rhodes.
I have seen reports saying that actually was never the case, where he said that WWE is not preventing him. But that's a different story.
Okay, yeah. Well,
to your point, though, I mean, he is someone that's known, but he's not, the guys that really move the needle in WWE aren't necessarily, the best performers. They're the John Cenas and to some degree the Brock Lesnars. I guess my question is, will they need more guys like that to get out of the just simply niche fan base and to become a real contender?
I think you might need a couple more.
CM Punk would be a guy that people have speculated.
If they can land him, that would be big. Is Punk willing to do it? He says he's done with wrestling. Or is he willing to come back and stick it to Vince and company? I don't know. It's interesting. It would be a big get. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, and the next year or so, there might be WWE guys who contracts are coming up who decide, you know what, I'm not happy with my position in the company. I'm going to take a bet on myself and go there. That might help. I mean, time will tell. There's still a lot to be determined, but I think it's a very exciting time if you're a wrestling fan. If not, there's at least hope that there's more and better wrestling ahead. I think Vince needs a push. Vince is always better when there's competition and he has somebody to go up against.
And that's on paper makes sense. But what I told you, Justin, is right now NXT is thriving whether they have competition or not because someone else is controlling the day-to-day operations of it. I don't think Vince McMahon's going to change much right now as long as he's still in control. If it was Triple H or someone, even Stephanie, I think that we'd see a completely different product that'd be much better. I think right now at age 70 plus, Vince McMahon's going to stick with what he thinks works because it worked in prior years, whether or not there's competition. And I don't think he considers anything real competition until they're darn close in terms of the money they're making and the ratings they're drawing.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time Vince really changed up what his MO was? Back when WCW Nitro started kicking his butt.
Right.
So it's going to take that. I mean,
that was also a 50-year-old Vince McMahon that right. at that point,
I mean, would he be then more willing to loosen the strings and let Triple H do more? I don't know. It's hard to say. And with the XFL coming up, does that mean is he going to go pay more attention over there? I mean, there's a lot of unknowns coming up, which is exciting. And another thing about All Elite Wrestling, which I'll say is a concern, we've all seen people complain about the guys in charge of WCW booking themselves, like Kevin Nash booking himself to beat Goldberg. I am concerned with Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks being vice presidents. They're going to be in charge of the promotion. How are they going to book themselves?
I don't think they would overly push themselves, at least from the get-go, but it always comes down to maybe not even their booking, maybe the booking of someone that that they're very close to, that has fallen on hard times, or maybe someone that they're just, not seeing eye to eye with at any given time.
Well, like, clearly the Elite, they're all boys. They're all pretty good friends, all doing this together. Wouldn't they get favoritism? And I'm just, that's something you have to look for. Like, the first year it might not matter, but, like, if it's year 3 and 4 and we're looking at the same guys being on top, and it's like, uh-oh, here we go again. It's just something to look. I think Cody's too smart for that. I mean, his dad was a promoter. Hopefully, he's learned a lot throughout the years, and he won't fall in that mistake. Don't learn from WCW.
There's a reason why you don't have player coaches in professional sports anymore, or player GMs, certainly. One last thing I want to ask, because I touched on it last week, and we will discuss it in weeks coming, but Kenny Omega seems like he has a decision. What's your thoughts right now on what he would be leaning towards, and how much of an impact would he make in either promotion?
If you would have asked me this question a couple of days ago, I would have said, I think WWE. I don't know why. I just had a gut feeling. Now I'm leaning towards All Elite Wrestling. You read that he was offered a hell of a deal, from WWE, being reported like at $3.5 million as his like base, plus everything else. You would think he's going to want to go with his boys. It's hard to say. I guess either is a win for the North American wrestling fan, because we'll get to see him more. It's interesting because I know New Japan definitely doesn't want to lose him. I could see them striking a deal to work with All Elite Wrestling if Kenny Omega signs there, because they could still use him over there. Because I read today that Jericho's deal with All Elite, it's exclusive to All Elite, but they will allow him to work New Japan, and that's it. So if they are going to have some type of relationship there, it probably will benefit, Kenny, if he goes to All Elite Wrestling. If he's really wanting to change the wrestling world, I think he's going to choose All Elite Wrestling and go with his friend. So that's what I'm going with now. It's All Elite Wrestling. Fair enough,
and I'm sure by February 1st we'll know, if not sooner. Did want to touch on what we saw from WWE this week, and of course they were promoting this as the first Raw of 2019, and that sort of inherently indicates, maybe changes, because we heard the speech from Vince and Triple H and Stephanie and for some reason Shane, where they come out and say we're going to listen to the fans, so on and so forth. Neither you or I, Justin, believe that was going to lead to sweeping changes. The one thing that I think is very clear, they've made it a concerted effort to push superstars that fans have been vocal about deserving pushes. People like Apollo Crews, the Revival on Smackdown, Anderson and Gallows. Tyler Breeze got a match. However, and that's good. There's no doubt that those are things that are needed. Do you, after watching Raw last night, feel like this show is any better, even though that is still true? Isn't it the same weaknesses that we've been seeing?
Raw's garbage. I'll straight up. Raw is just plain garbage to me. This Monday, I watched bits and pieces as I was watching the National Championship football game. And when I did turn in, I did watch the beginning, and I did enjoy, for the most part, the opening segment.
Which was John Cena coming out, and then Rollins and Finn against Ambrose, McIntyre, and Lashley.
I had no problem with that. No really big complaints. But then everything I saw after that, I thought was garbage. I really did. To the point where some of it was agonizing to me. The Lesnar Strowman promo was bad. The Ronda Rousey Alexa Bliss segment with Nia Jax, that was awful. Nothing to me's changed. They came out. The only thing that changed is they don't have GMs anymore. And yet,
but Triple H has still been involved in that similar type of role.
Right. So, they say they're no longer rematches, yet we're getting a bunch of rematches at the Royal Rumble. It's
no more automatic rematch clause, which I don't think that was a thing people were complaining about. I would more so complain about defending the title in the 30-day period.
Right. It's garbage. And explain to me why Corbin, who's no longer the GM, is still wrestling in his GM gear. That's a pet peeve of mine right now.
I agree with that. So you liked the role at the beginning with John Cena. I kind of speculated, what exactly is John Cena going to be doing from here on out? Do you like the fact that he's just going to be here and there, mixed in matches, probably not long-term stories?
Clearly, he's not going to be around long-term. This is something like, hey, I can give you a month right now, and they're in desperate need of ratings. So they're like, hey, we'll just shoot you over to Raw, we'll shoot you over to Smackdown, wherever we think we can use you. We're not going to actually put you in a feud because you're not going to be around long enough. So we'll let you just kind of work with these guys and try to give rubs to the guys, promote you so we can try to get ratings.
Do you like that approach, though? Doesn't that make fans less... doesn't that make Cena less likable to the fans because he gets this special treatment?
Well, isn't he already kind of unlikable? I mean, the same people are going to boo him no matter what. The same people are going to cheer him.
I think at this point he's, people just appreciate the career that he's had because he's not shoved down their throat for 15 straight years like he had been.
I'm in that boat. I mean, 5 years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm so sick of Cena. I mean, now that he's kind of gone away to part-time, I can at least appreciate what he did. I respect it.
Right.
He's an all-time great.
He's the greatest of all time, Justin.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I still can't get past his hair. That's still
It's brought up each and every time he's on TV.
Yeah.
So you like that, but you mentioned two things, and I completely agree. Two disastrous segments. First, this one's more significant because Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman are once again facing off for the Universal title. It feels like this is the fourth or fifth or sixth time that in some capacity they have squared off. And I actually saw someone's tweet about this. They said this feud needs Kane randomly thrown into it to make it a triple threat. Do you remember that a year ago that was the Royal Rumble Universal Championship match? Lesnar, Strowman, and a returning Kane?
No, I did not remember that.
It's just like, has there any progress been made over the past year with either Strowman or Lesnar or the Universal title?
No, not at all. And, I mean, you could say, well, what happened to Roman Reigns threw a wrench in their plans, and I'm sure it did because clearly he would be the champ. But this is, again, an issue they have of not having other people in top spots, and it's the same two people, and not creating stars. They have nobody else they can throw in there. And Strowman's been hurt too much over the course of the last 6 to 8 months.
And a year ago at this time, he was in a different stratosphere than he is now.
And they blew it because they were like, we can't use him because we want Roman. And again, that's the stubbornness of not going with what the fans want. Like, somebody's hot, you roll with it until it's cooled off. Give that guy a chance. But instead, we need to cool him off because he's too hot and he can't be as hot as Roman.
Or make him heel, which they did for about 2.5 months, and that
made no sense.
It was bad. It hurt him. It hurt him now.
He made a heel turn out of nowhere and then turn back face out of nowhere. 0 sense.
And by the way, the report is that he forgot his lines on Raw. It was just really awkward. And the fact that they give Lesnar, let's say, 20 dates a year, somewhere in there, and they pay him an absurd amount of money, and yet at least half of those dates are him just standing next to Paul Heyman. Like, put him in matches. If you're going to pay him that much money, make use of him, right? I mean, he literally walked around the ring and that was it. That does nothing for me.
Brock Lesnar's the smartest man in wrestling because he's getting paid millions of dollars to show up, jump around, and have Paul Heyman talk for him and wrestle 3-4 times a year in now 10 to 15-minute matches. It really is amazing. And apparently Strowman's still not even cleared for contact or to wrestle.
Right.
Which blows my mind. They actually had him advertised for a match last month.
Well, he was in the match. He was in the match.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So that was bad. You probably could have expected that Strowman on the mic with Lesnar wasn't going to be a great segment unless Paul Heyman saved it, and he did in this case. You usually expect Alexa Bliss's talking segments to be pretty good. She had her debut talk show, A Moment of Bliss. She's a great talker, there's no doubt. Sucks that she can't wrestle right now, and you hope that that's not a permanent type of thing, because it's looking more and more dreadful by the week when she's not working, and now they've given her this talk show, which leads me to believe she probably won't be wrestling for a while. Nonetheless, She has Ronda Rousey out. Ronda's talking. Ronda inexplicably starts talking up Sasha Banks just because they told her to on this night. Then Nia Jax comes out, interrupts it. Nia and Sasha and Ronda all get into it. Nia says some nonsensical stuff. So Ronda's horrible on the mic. Nia's horrible on the mic. It leads to a match that Sasha wins. This just seems like a complete cluster that they came up with an hour before they went on the air. And why Ronda gets into a feud with Sasha, there's no reasoning because Sasha's been doing tag team stuff. You have to build to this type of stuff, right?
Yeah. Apparently, the plan that we've been hearing all along is going to be Charlotte Ronda Rumble, and I guess they scrapped that, and they're like, oh crap, who's going to face Ronda Rousey? And I guess Ronda backstage said she wanted to work with Sasha, and they're like, okay, that works. And it was just like this. Here we go. Throw it against the wall. I mean, that segment was awful.
How weird is it, though? I mean, she's literally in a tag team with Bayley right now, and they're talking about they want to be the first tag team champions.
Right, and then they're like, well, we're going to scrap that because when are these belts coming? We know the belts are coming. And
I would think WrestleMania, right?
Right, and I mean, clearly Sasha's in there. She'll have a mini feud with Ronda for 3 weeks, lose the match, and move on. Probably back to Bayley. This is like a very short-term thing.
It's not going to help Sasha, even if she has a great match.
No, because honestly, Sasha is another wrestler who's been, I don't want to say buried, because I don't think that's a proper term to use, but mismanaged to the point where she's not that big a deal. I don't know how many people truly care about her anymore.
I think she is every bit as good as Sasha. Sasha is as good as Becky Lynch and Charlotte. Now, you could say Becky on the mic right now has gone above everyone, but I always thought Sasha was the most talented overall out of that whole group.
I mean, that's very debatable. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but she's been booked as such that it's like, and that's a problem. And now she's going to face Ronda, and no one, I think, is actually going to believe Sasha could win. And then, I mean, Nia Jax, which, don't get me wrong, she's awful, but...
I'm to the point now where I would rather have her literally go down and work at the PC for months and not see her on TV until after Mania.
My complaint is now with her, 1 month they're building her up as this unstoppable monster, like the Big Show of the then now she's tapping out to Sasha Banks. Like, what is it? Is she the unstoppable monster, or is she a joke like that? And that's why Nia Jax is never going to be taken seriously, nor should she really be, because she's awful in the ring. But even her fake vomit and how she carried, I mean, the whole thing. I'm like, what? I honestly was like, what the hell is that noise? I'm like, I thought it was a guy. I was like,
I did too.
It's gonna be some type of comedy skill with a guy, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Nia Jax. Wow. And, I mean, and then the whole bitch line. How she responded to that. It was awkward.
Yeah, I was thinking that was not even supposed to be on camera. I feel like that was something she would have said when they went to commercial, but
right. It almost felt like Sasha. I mean, came off fine, but Nia didn't know Sasha was going to say that, and then she was trying to find a good comeback. Came back 30 seconds too late.
Yeah, Sasha and Bliss were fine. Ronda struggled, and that's sort of expected, and Nia was just terrible. Anyway, that was all terrible. Let's talk about something that I think was actually decent, but you and I both agree it was done for other reasons than what was presented, and that was the return of Hulk Hogan. It didn't feel like a big deal, and really it shouldn't for, a guy that's, I don't know how old he is, but he's in his 60s at least at this point, really hasn't been able to wrestle for more than a decade. For some reason, they still want to get him involved, and maybe that does increase ratings. They needed a reason to bring him back. They found one with the death of Mean Gene Okerlund, and they said, well, let's have Hulk Hogan come out and kind of, in a sense, give a eulogy about him. I thought Hogan did okay, but I also feel like it was fake when he, was nearly moved to tears. It was sort of phony, even if he really is upset about the passing of Mean Gene, and even if he is a good person to speak to, the legacy of Mean Gene. It just seemed like a good opportunity for the company to get him back on, but I'm not really buying it, and I don't see what future he's going to have.
Oh boy, did I hate this. First off, to be completely honest, I've never been a Hogan fan, period. Even when I was a kid, I don't like Hulk Hogan, so maybe I'm biased here, but I think he's a piece of crap. I hate the dude, I hate the man, I hate the wrestler, I just hate him. For everything he did good for the wrestling industry, which he did, being a major star. I also think
I will say, when people say the greatest of all time, I always think Hulk Hogan. And I know that when you look at all aspects of it, in ring and things like that, no. But to me, he is the reason why wrestling became as big as it did. And maybe that's because we're in our mid-30s, but early 30s, as some would say.
In regards to that, I think I've seen that Austin was actually the biggest draw ever.
I'm sure he was, but that's also different
Hogan
era.
was what he was. He brought wrestling to the mainstream, and that's fact. I mean, we can't deny that, and I won't deny that, but I just don't like him. I think, he helped the Monday Night Wars. He also helped WCW fall. I don't think he's a good person. From all of his, over the course of the last couple of years, his personal life's been in the news a lot. He's been in the news for negative reasons. I think he's just a joke of a man. And they used him to get back on TV to exploit Mean Gene's death. And wrestling, I'm not taking the moral high ground here. That's what wrestling does.
Right, but with Mean Gene, they honored him properly.
Right.
The video package, I love their video packages. That's consistently what this company does excellently.
And I think I brought this up, I talked to you. I didn't like how he talked about Macho Man because him and more Macho Man, I guess, really hated Hogan. It wasn't like when he passed, they were good friends. They were enemies for years. And I felt like he was just taking advantage of his situation to play up to the crowd, which he had to do because I'm sure there was a little worry that he would be booed. And I think that's why they brought him back.
In a situation where fans can't boo.
Because the fans could not boo him in that situation, which was smart on Vince's part. But I don't know why they were such in a hurry and really want Hogan on TV. Why? He's just like what? A 60-year-old man. What does he provide for your company anymore?
Right, I agree.
Nothing really.
It's a grab for the ratings.
Yeah.
I want to focus on Smackdown now, and we don't have a lot of time, so we'll make it quick. Smackdown, it seemed, again, was a better show. The pacing's just so much better. And there was like 3 pretty good matches on Smackdown. The most notable takeaway was the women's triple threat main event. And Justin, this one, to me, good match. Hard to complain about Becky Lynch winning a match against, 2 fairly formidable competitors, although I think Carmella, more than anything right now, is, sort of a second tier type of thing. But I don't want Becky Lynch challenging for the title at Royal Rumble. I think this is a bad decision, and it concerns me that she won't be in the title match at WrestleMania now against Ronda Rousey.
I have a couple concerns. I really think she's going to be there. I hope.
Is it her, Ronda, and Charlotte still? Because it makes it a little more difficult now that she's not in the Rumble.
I think what we're seeing. Well, I think what they're going to do, which I really don't like it, but I guess it's the lesser of other evils, is we're going to see a triple threat. Somehow Ronda, Charlotte, Becky. Somehow it's going to happen, which I'm okay with it, but I think Becky deserves a one-on-one match with Ronda.
I think they're sort of meeting in the middle because I think all along Vince wanted Charlotte and Ronda.
Right.
Becky.
It's the same case again, though, where the storyline, the fans, everything played out to have a singles match. But because Vince and his stubbornness, gotta have Charlotte. Charlotte's, yeah. Like, why? That's not what the people want. And here we go again, pushing her in. At least Charlotte's deserving.
I was going to say, I think it's fine as long as Becky is still in it. Now, if you do Charlotte versus Ronda without Becky, that's when it becomes a major problem. That could happen. I'm telling you, Justin, that could happen with how this is set up now because Becky's not going to be in the Rumble, it appears.
Extremely angry about that. Maybe the only way they can slip by if somehow Becky maybe regains the title at Rumble, so she's a champ. So, Charlotte then wins the Women's Rumble and challenges Ronda.
Or she says, I want both champs. Can you do that? They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, but then what happens if one champ pins the other champ, or the title's unified?
That's like you bring up a good point.
I was talking with somebody on Twitter this morning because he asked me a question like, well, do you still think Becky and Ronda is going to happen? I said, I do. He goes, well, with Becky facing Asuka at Rumble, does that mean she's going to be in the Rumble match? Because usually that means you won't be in the match. So if she's not in the match, how is it going to happen?
Becky was the one who needed to win this Rumble, I think.
I totally agree. So who's going to win it now? I guess Charlotte?
Yep.
Again, they're dropping the ball. I don't know what's so hard about booking these Rumbles where everybody, thinks, oh, Becky should win this. We're behind Becky. You know what? Joke's on you guys because Becky's not winning.
Or at least put Charlotte and Becky in there, and now the fans are wondering, well, which one of the two is it going to be? Because we know it's going to be one of the two. Now at least we have a reason to watch it till the end.
Yeah.
Other things on SmackDown I thought were good. No surprise, the Bar and the Usos again, and this actually went 3 segments. And could you imagine a Raw, true tag teams on Raw getting 3 segments? Probably never going to see it in 2018 or 2019. That was a great match. They had the Mandy Rose intervention, which I think is a fun storyline. I know some people aren't real fond of it.
Yeah.
To me, that's how you use Mandy Rose. You're not going to make her a real serious in-ring competitor yet. You make her, a hot woman who tries to use her looks to get by, and I love how Naomi's reacting to it. But nonetheless, the Usos on the outside looking in. Now it's going to be Shane and Miz. That might be a fun match against the Bar. The other thing is they had a really good tag team match to kick off the show. Mysterio and Mustafa Ali against Andrade Cien Almas and Samoa Joe. This is big because I have for months complained about Andrade Cien Almas going against top stars, always losing. I feel like they're sort of like, well, we have to have this guy win every now and then, especially if we're going to try to make him into a legitimate Royal Rumble threat. We have to have him win. So he got the victory. So good for him. All 4 of those guys are very talented in different ways. So I'm glad to see guys like Ali and Almas are going to potentially be getting pushes.
Yeah, very fun match. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a perfect use of Ray. Kind of putting over his younger counterpart in a way.
And how good were some of their move exchanges there with that?
It was
that Canadian Exploder.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. To me, and that's the wrestling I kind of enjoy too. I had high hopes for the match. I thought they delivered. I thought SmackDown for the most part did deliver. SmackDown usually does. SmackDown's way better than Raw. I enjoyed it. Even the opening with Bryan. I was a little taken aback at first because Raw opened in the back, and
I thought the same thing. Yep.
I'm like, okay, don't do the same thing, guys. That's a little. But he was out at the bar, and that one guy who sold the hot dog to the face. That sell job was amazing. I was
a real fan, Justin.
Oh, absolutely. Not a local independent wrestler at all. No way.
Again, SmackDown good, Raw maybe good for the third, maybe half at best.
If you want to, not a half.
I thought Rollins and Ambrose had a nice finish, although Lashley sidetracked that one with the run-in.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it now looks like you're going to have Rollins and Lashley, and I don't. I mean, what Apollo's due for an Intercontinental match? Is he going to face Ambrose next, I guess? I
maybe.
don't know.
Maybe. Last thing I want to touch on, it's this weekend. You and I have not had the opportunity to watch NXT UK, but I want to kind of gauge what you think of this, because they're having their first pay-per-view in Blackpool, and just the fact that it has the NXT name behind it, there's some level of excitement because, especially for the the European fans, this is a big deal for them. They get a pay-per-view, albeit not a main roster one. Do you have intentions of watching the show either live or later? And do you think it's going to be anywhere close to what the takeovers of the North American NXT have been?
I do expect it to be a good show. Full disclosure, I don't even know exactly what the whole card is. I know some of the matches.
We know Tyler Bates going to be in a tag team match, Mustache Mountain, him and Trent Seven, Pete Dunne defending the title, I believe against Joe Coffey, who I'm not real familiar with, and then a really good women's match as well with Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, I probably am not going to watch it live. I'll probably try to catch it, definitely, just because I've yet to actually see one, and takeovers usually deliver. I'm sure it's going to be great matches. The crowd's going to be hot, and I enjoy shows with hot crowds. So I would assume it's going to be 2 hours, and hopefully I can fit it in over the weekend.
It seems like it's set up similarly to regular takeovers. 5 matches. They put months of build into it. It feels a lot different than what the main roster does.
Since it's the first one, for Britain, the UK, I guess I should say. I expect big things. I will try to give it a shot. I don't, like I said, I don't know when I'll catch it. maybe I'm missing the boat here.
Do you ever see NXT UK being as big of a deal to North American fans, anywhere even close to what our NXT is?
No. Sorry, because I mean, maybe they'll come on tour around here a little bit, but the whole idea is supposed to be a UK brand for them over there. So, I mean, occasionally we see Dunn and, Tyler Bate, they come over to NXT.
And they're two of the best in the ring.
Right, and I enjoy them. I enjoy Tony Storm and Mia Ripley. I wish we could get more of them over here. But I guess, we're just being too selfish. So, I mean, I guess if I want to see them, I got to go, check them out on the network.
Well, that's going to do it for this week. Final thing before we sign off, Justin. You're so excited about All Elite Wrestling. Is 2019 going to be a lot better for you as a wrestling fan? Because I know you were really down on stuff, at least over the last 6 months.
I hope so, because, if I've talked to you, like, I don't know if it's just my taste or I'm getting older and I'm kind of losing my interest, but my interest in WWE, for instance, is as low as it's been for probably since I've been a wee kid just starting out watching wrestling. I don't feel compelled to make sure I watch Raw anymore. I don't care if I miss an hour, hour and a half. If I miss it, I miss it. I can read about it. I don't care. They're definitely losing me, as a fan. I still have the network.
I think anyone's going to want to keep the network just because of everything that's on there.
It's cheap. If they would raise the prices, I might reconsider depending on what the price would be. I still want to watch, Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, but I don't feel the need to watch. There's like 4 or 5 pay-per-views I want to see a year. The rest I can care less about. Smackdown's still enjoyable and watchable, but if I do miss it, I don't really care that much. It's not must-see TV anymore, but I'm hoping wrestling becomes must-see again. I want it to be fun again, and even if my dislike for WWE doesn't change, maybe I have a new passion for All Elite Wrestling, and I can get into that.
Well said, Justin. Get your nightcap on. Time for you to hit the sack, but I appreciate you talking here. We'll definitely continue to talk about the changing industry with All Elite and some of the big news. Again, we're going to be focusing on Kenny Omega a lot over the next couple of weeks as well. But that's going to do it for this episode. Once again, check us out, 5-Star Pod Wrestle on Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. For Justin Lowery, Sean Meyers signing off. You've been watching another edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.